guys, so today I am coming to you with a new series on my channel, which will basically be a Bible study with me type of series. So I'm going to read this here Bible and I'm just gonna show you guys my process and just kind of talk with you about each book that I'm working on. And yeah, it's gonna be super casual, super fun, and just super chill. I'm not a pastor, I'm not qualified to do a video like this, but as a teenage girl, I all the time am looking on YouTube and to other resources for help on studying the Bible, and there's some great ones, some great ones on YouTube, but there's not enough out there, and I just kind of feel like there's a lack of these type of videos on YouTube, and I just want there to be more so that the word can reach more people and that more people can feel like this is a safe space, a free space to do stuff like this. So anyways, a little disclaimer before I get started. Like I said, I am no pastor, and honestly I've struggled a lot with even getting the courage to film this video because I'm not perfect, but I feel like if I wait till I'm the perfect Christian, which by the way doesn't exist, then I'll just never film it. So I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus and God and all that. Obviously this is a Bible study, but also I don't know, I guess I'm considered a non-denominational Christian. My personal approach to the Bible and to God is completely based off love. I think legalism, which is basically, if you don't know what legalism is, it's the kind of Christianity that's completely focused on the laws of God, more focused on the Old Testament and living by the law. I am not a legalist by any stretch of the word. In my opinion, if you love Jesus and you love God and He's in your heart and you've accepted Him, then I don't care what you wear, who you marry, who you love, what you do, you're good in my eyes. I obviously try to live my life based off how God intended life to be lived. I do believe that He set out guidelines and kind of an instruction manual in the Bible so that people can live how they were made to live. But like I said, I really don't care what you do. To me, it's just about the love and the acceptance and the grace from God. So with all that being said, today we are going to study James in the Bible. I'm not exactly sure what made me pick James, but I picked it, and here I am, and we're gonna start with James. So today we will be going through James chapter 1, and then I will be going through chapters 2 through 5 in other videos. So yeah, let's just get into it. So here's my Bible. It's pink because everything I love so much is pink. Also, my Bible is the NIV version, which is the New International Version, which if you have the King James or any other version of the Bible, that's totally fine. Literally until this Bible, probably a month or two ago, I used the King James version of the Bible, which was more of the Old English style, and it was fine. Obviously I used it, but it is so much easier, and I just enjoy doing Bible studies so much more since I've gotten this Bible. So I would definitely recommend, if you're able to get the NIV version, if you don't have a Bible at all, get the free Holy Bible app off the App Store. Just try and find a Bible to work through here. Okay, so basically my plan here is I have been working through and writing notes on this for the past couple weeks, but I'm gonna basically go through this again. I'm just gonna read through this again and really just kind of tell you what I'm thinking and what I'm interpreting. Don't take my word for it, take the word's word for it. I'm just gonna kind of tell you my perspective and how I interpret this, and just tell you what you can do to apply the message to your life, at least in my opinion. So please don't come for me in the comments. I'm trying my best here. So chapter 1 verse 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes scattered among the nations, greetings. Okay, so the first little heading here is trials and tribulations. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Okay, so I underlined this verse, verse 2 and 3, chapter 1. This verse is one of the most important in James, in my opinion. It just has such a weight to it, because basically what God is saying to you here is the pain you're feeling, these trials, these challenges, all these issues you're facing, instead of being upset about them, try and find, or don't try, do find the joy in the situation. Because God is putting you through these trials, He is making you better. So let's break it down. Consider it pure joy. So not just kind of happy, not just consider it sort of fun, consider it pure joy. Pure, like as in nothing can tarnish it. Pure joy. My brothers and sisters, all of us, whenever you face trials of many kinds. So this isn't for you to think, oh, okay, well this is about so-and-so's trial, but mine doesn't apply because mine's XYZ and theirs is whatever. This is for any type of trial you're facing. It can be little, it can be big, it can be anything. It can be a trial in your mind, it can be a trial physically, or just any sort of trial. Because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. I think a key note in this is that it's saying the testing of your faith produces perseverance, because you are going to grow and it is going to turn out to be a positive thing ultimately, even if it's only within like your spiritual growth, if you have faith. Not having faith during your trials and your tribulations is kind of like being up the creek without a paddle, you know what I mean? Like, you remaining faithful in these times is paramount to you reaching the end and you reaching your new level of knowledge or growth or understanding, or just whatever blessing waits at the end for you, because there will be some sort of blessing waiting at the end for you, I promise. So it is key that you remain faithful during your trials and tribulations, and that on top of that, that you try and remain joyful. Because listen, I have gone through the worst 2 years of my life recently, literally like the worst 2 years I've ever personally experienced, and I can tell you that it is so super hard to find the joy in those situations. But I can tell you now, also looking back at them, that I understand what God did with those things. I understand how those things improved me. And there's stuff I'm going through right now that I don't see the silver lining yet. But I'm just trying to remain faithful and know that God will work it out, and I'm trying to be joyful. You don't have to be joyful that you're hurting, but you can be joyful that you're growing and that you're transforming. Like, just imagine, like, if you're watching a superhero movie or something, and the person is going to get all these amazing powers, which is what God's grace is, like accepting that and knowing that it's just superpowers basically. Just imagine like watching a movie and this person's going through the pain of their body or their mind transforming and get these powers. That's basically what your trials and tribulations are. Okay, moving on. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. I have a little anecdote for this particular section of chapter 1. I was listening to a Joyce Meyer video, and she was saying, you know, you should pray for the wisdom of being complete in God and like having complete spirituality in God. And she said, you know, be prepared. And I personally did start praying that God grow me spiritually and bring me to the place of maturity and completion, as is mentioned here. And my world was shaken in a lot of ways. Friendships were lost, things changed, I changed. When you ask God for that, He's going to give that to you. He is very generously going to give you the growth and the wisdom and the maturity that you're asking for. It's going to probably come in a negative package, if that makes sense. Not that God ever bestows negativity onto our lives, but He uses that negativity to grow us, because sometimes humans are so hard-headed, and the way we grow is by experiencing and learning and just blossoming through our pain. And I just want you to truly sit back and think like of the hardest moments in your life, and I want you to think, okay, how was I before that moment and how was I after? And if you can't find any sort of silver lining in it, it's because it's not completed yet. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. This, I underlined it, I wrote it down in my notes. This, God came straight for my jugular with this one. But I want you to listen to this. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. So, let's continue here with my personal anecdote. When I asked God for that spiritual maturity and the kind of the growth I was needing as I'm going into adulthood and all that, I asked God for that. And He truly, truly gave it to me. And it was in a really painful way, and I was not prepared. I'm still honestly, I'm still a little bit devastated about it. But during this time, I've realized that it's no coincidence that once I started praying for that growth, this thing that was so out of left field just happened so magically or just randomly. And I think one reason that it was so extra hard on me, other than just being an extra hard thing, is that I was doubting that it was God's plan. I was sitting there being like, God, why is this how you're growing me? Why is it this way? Why does this person not understand me? Why do I not understand this person? Why is this happening? I truly was like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. It was like an emotional roller coaster. I was sad, I was angry, I was mad, then I would be grateful, but then I would be this, and I just constantly was like, is this really your plan? Like, are you sure, God? Like, are you super sure? Because I wasn't really trusting the process. I wasn't really trusting that this was going to be a good thing for me, because at the time, and still a little bit, it feels like it is not a good thing for me. You might not even be asking for like growth or maturity or anything like that, but you might ask something like, okay, for example, I don't know, say you're asking God for a house. You want a nice big house. Okay, this is just a metaphorical thing. And all of a sudden you're going through a really tough time at work. You're working really hard and you feel like it's not paying off, and you're just like grinding and just doing so much. And then you're sitting there like, why am I going through this, God? Why am I working so hard? What is the point of this? Why am I doing this? All this stuff. And then suddenly, boom, you got a bonus or something to buy this new house. You may have asked for a blessing. It might not be like the lottery calling you the next day and being like, hey, you won $1 million house. It might be a trial. It might be a tribulation that is still fulfilling that blessing you asked God for. So obviously you are going to doubt that it's God's will. You are going to doubt His goodness and His faithfulness, because that is human nature. And as much as we try not to, anyone who tells you they've never doubted anything that God's thrown them is probably lying. It's so much harder on us when we choose to dishonor God's blessing in the form of a trial by not believing in its goodness or His faithfulness or His goodness. So when you don't believe that this trial and this pain and this tribulation is going to bring you to a better point in your life, you're really just making it umpteen times harder on yourself, because you're really just being tossed around emotionally and it feels like there will never be any good out of it. If you remain faithful and remain strong in your belief that God is blessing you with this, then it's so much easier to get through it. Okay, so verse 7. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all that they do. This is a good point, because I really like the part where it says unstable in all they do, because I kind of feel like, for me at least, when I'm going through like an emotional roller coaster, emotional turmoil, I feel like it just floods into every other part of my life. It floods into just my sleep and the way I interact with my family. I mean, it just floods into everything. And it's like, when you feel that sort of crazy like turmoil going on, you really are unstable and you're conflicted. And it's just, if we can just really try to hone in on God's faith, and just every time we're thinking, why is this happening to me? Why is God doing this to me? We have to immediately switch our thought to, thank you, God, for growing me in this. And basically we should just try and train ourselves to get excited to see what God is going to create so powerfully out of this issue. Believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position, but the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wildflower. This is such a good comparison, because who doesn't love a good wildflower? And flowers in particular, especially wildflowers, because I always just think of really bright, vivid colors with wildflowers. They're just so beautiful and you just want them and you kind of are drawn to them, but of course they wilt away and die. And I feel like this is such a good analogy just for human life in general. Like, we are so beautiful and wonderfully created, but we do wilt away and die, and that's just how it is with anything. The most beautiful person you know right now will wilt away and die. The smartest person you know right now will wilt away and die. That's just how it is. When we take such entitlement in our looks or our position of power or our money or whatever it is, we're really just looking stupid and setting ourselves up for failure, because at the end of the day, we're all going to lose all those things that make us wildflowers to pass on to a much better existence. For the sun rises with scorching heat and withers the plant. Its blossom falls and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away even while they go about their business. Also, a quick little side note, in my personal opinion, when he says rich in this context, I don't necessarily think it only applies like rich as in money-wise. I think it's rich in anything. Rich in popularity, rich in beauty, rich in whatever you want to call it. Like, I think it's just putting the emphasis on people who just have an abundance of something that we all kind of covet and that they sort of covet. I think that's what they're really talking about here. Okay, verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. And this just instills such hope in me. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and underline that. Okay, I know this might be kind of crazy, but I'm going to make a sort of wild comparison here. What they're saying right here is the one who perseveres under these trials and remains faithful under these tribulations, at the end of the day, once that test has completed, the Lord will bless a crown of life, or bless them with whatever, you know, he's going to bless them with. And this almost, okay, just hold out here. This kind of reminds me of when a woman is giving birth. Okay, so when a woman goes into labor, she is going through an immense amount of pain. She is suffering, she is hurting, she is emotional. It is one of the most painful things in the world. I read somewhere that childbirth is the equivalent of being set on fire. She is enduring such pain. But the reason so many women are ecstatic when they're in labor, the reason that they stand through this test and that they don't just like give up or something, not that they really could give up, but you know what I mean. The reason so many women even put themselves through this is because they know they are going to be blessed at the end of this horrible pain. They are going to be blessed with a child. When you go into labor as a woman, you know that you're going to get the biggest blessing ever out of it, so you're willing to suffer through that pain. So if we started looking at all of our trials and all of our issues in the same context of, okay, I'm enduring this pain, but I'm going to be getting the biggest reward out of it. Can you imagine the difference in our attitudes and our positivity? Like, we would just have such a totally different outlook on life in general if we really looked at it the same way that the Bible is telling us to look at it, and that if we remain strong and have faith and persevere, then we will be gifted. So you just have to keep that in mind even when you're suffering. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone, but each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. This is another thing that I feel like a lot of non-Christians or a lot of atheists or just even Christians sometimes, and myself, I mean, I wonder all the time, like, why does God like tempt me? Like, why does God put negativity into my life, if that makes sense? But I think this is really good because God doesn't tempt us, okay? Like, let's just have another example here. A married man walks into a bar and there's a beautiful seductress sitting there, all right? And he's like, God, why are you tempting me? Like, I'm gonna go cheat on this woman. That woman being there is not God's fault. It's not the woman's fault, and it's really not the man's fault either. I mean, you shouldn't really be going to bars like by yourself if you're a married man looking for a lady. But anyways, I digress. The infidelity in that man's heart is what's tempting him, not God, right? So if he fixed that need or the selfish desire to kind of cheat on his wife, he wouldn't be tempted. So it's not that God has just like decided to be like, oh, I'm gonna like send this in there and like just have a little fun and see if they like break or anything. The reason we are tempted by anything is because there's something inside of our heart and our souls that is broken, and that is what's tempting us. So I think it would be a really good habit for all of us to instill, and gosh knows I'm trying to instill it myself, that when something is tempting us, we're not immediately like, thanks a lot, God, thanks for trying to send me into temptation, like whatever. Instead, we should be like, okay, why am I tempted by this and what can I do to fix it? Then after the desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Amen. Okay, so let's go back to the man. All right, so this man, he knows that he lusts after other women who are not his wife, all right? But he's kind of like, oh, all I'm doing is thinking about it, and all I'm doing is like coveting having another woman in my life, like whatever. When he starts on that path, then so he's gonna be like, oh, well, I can just chat with this lady, like I'm not like doing anything with her. I mean, I'm just having an emotional connection with a woman who's not my wife. And then after that, he may kiss her, and then after that, they may do some other things. So I think it's really, really important that we don't give ourselves the benefit of excuses, because in the end, that will lead to sin. So when we have these thoughts, where you shouldn't just like sit with these thoughts and be like, okay, that's fine, like let me just have these thoughts. Like, no, we need to work on getting rid of these thoughts altogether, because we are just weak in the flesh. That's, I mean, human nature is to give into sin, to give into temptation. So I feel like as soon as you get tempted with desire, as soon as it's there, cut it out. Try your best to get rid of it, because it will lead you to sin eventually. Don't be deceived, my dear brothers and sisters. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. I love the part where it says who does not change like shifting shadows, because if you think about like seeing shadows like out on the street or something, they just like move quick and they're in and out, and it's just like craziness, and you can't really like pinpoint a shadow, and they're distorted and they just aren't really mimicking real life. God is not like that. God, he doesn't change, all right? He remains constant, and his answer to our problems is always the same. His answer is always trust, it's always faith, it's always love, it's always goodness. It's never like peace one day and war the next day. Like, it's never going to be that, and he will never change like a shifting shadow. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, that we might be kind of first fruits of all he created. I don't really know what first fruits really is. Can I Google that? Let me Google that. Okay, so little tidbit. I did not know what being a kind of first fruits meant, but according to ye old Google, first fruits means to appropriately mark a portion of the produce of the field as belonging to God. In the law of Moses, there is a parallel between the offering of first fruits and the offering of the firstborn male, which opens the womb. Opens the womb. Okay, so I guess the first fruits meaning here is like the cream of the crop, if you will. I guess that's kind of what first fruits is. Like, out of everything. Oh, this makes so much sense. Okay, so think about it like this. So basically what this verse 18, chapter 1 is saying is that he chose to give birth to us humans. He created us humans in the likeness of truth, in the likeness of his word, and his word is the truth, so that we could kind of be like the elite, not the elite, but you know what I mean, like the good of everything he created. So out of all the leaves and the trees and the fish and the birds and everything, he created us specifically in his truth, so that we could kind of be the offering up of goodness in this world. See, this is why you should Google stuff in the Bible, because I would have just totally breezed through that and been like, okay, I'm a fruit. So now we're on to the next little subheading, listening and doing. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Did you hear me? Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. This is something I personally really struggle with, because usually when someone says something to offend me, I don't sit there and think, maybe I should slowly think about this and then slowly speak about this. Normally I just start popping off left and right, and then sometimes afterwards I'm like, ooh, really kind of misjudged that situation. So it is something that really, if you think about it, like imagine if when someone offended you, okay, whenever somebody said something to you, instead of just immediately like reacting like how your emotions want you to, you sat there and thought, okay, I'm quickly listening. Now I'm thinking about this. What do they mean by this? How are they coming at me here? Are they coming at me in this way? Are they coming at me in that way? Even if they're coming at me in an attacking way, why? Did I do something here that I should be accountable for? If not, maybe it's because they're having a bad day, or maybe it's because they're struggling with something bigger that has nothing to do with me, and instead of forsaking my own well-being, my own righteousness, I should just let it be. Like, do you know how many problems that would solve, or like problems that would even be prevented from happening in the first place if we all did that like this? I just want to tattoo this on my forehead. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because I really, really, really need to work on this. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Which is so true, because if you come at anything from a place of anger, I know this from personal experience, then it just won't turn out good. Like, I kind of feel like I totally believe in like cooling off periods, or like sleeping on an issue instead of confronting it immediately. Even though like my personal desires, I hate leaving things like unsaid. I hate like not fixing an issue instantly. So a lot of times I will come at things instantly from anger, just like wanting it to be done, or like wanting to get answers or whatever. But if I really decided to sit with my anger and expel it and really try to fill it up with understanding or empathy or new perspective or something, like, and came at conversations or came at issues through the lens of like positivity instead of anger, I really feel like there would be much different relationships in my life and there would have been a lot different outcomes. And I feel like this is something I really also want to work on. Just instead of coming at things from such an angry place all the time, just try and let that anger go, even if it takes a while before confronting an issue, because nothing good will come of it if I'm angry. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. Here's an important note too, is the word planted in you, which can save you. I feel like that can be like on a macro and a micro level. Like, it can be the word saves you, obviously, because if you accept Jesus into your heart, then you get to live in heaven for all of eternity and you're just all like kumbaya out there and everything. But also it can save you from just living like a rough life on earth. Choosing to behave in the way that God has laid out for us in the Bible can really save us from a lot of heartache that we kind of like put on ourselves. Like I said, if I came at things from a place of like understanding versus anger, I could have saved myself probably so much heartache and heartache for other people, you know what I mean? So I just feel like this is such a good message because the word is planted in us, and if we choose to honor it and choose to understand it and choose to study it, then we can live in a way that we are safe and that we are saved both from hell and also from heartache in the human world. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. I'm so guilty of being like sitting here for like an hour reading my Bible and being like, oh, this is some good stuff, and then I'm like turn around and walk out my door and I'm like, and then all of a sudden I'm a straight heathen who's never been to church a day in her life. So I really feel like God just like is calling all of us out, me included, by saying, don't just listen to what I'm saying, do it, because it doesn't really count if you don't actually do it. I could sit here all day and like think about studying for a test so that I get an A, but then if I don't actually study for it, then like I'm not gonna get an A, you know what I mean? Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. Yes, literally when you look in a mirror, you see yourself, right? But imagine if every time you look, I'm looking at my mirror right here. Imagine if you turned away immediately and then someone's like, hey, what do you look like? As if maybe they couldn't see you, okay? And they're like, hey, what do you look like? And you're like, ooh, I don't know, sister. What do I look like? That is what it's like to read the word and then not go do it, which honestly, yes, this is so good. This is gold because really like that is what this is about. Like it's like divine intervention when you read the Bible. Like literally God is saying, hey, this is exactly what you should do here. And then as soon as we intake that, it like computes in our brains and we're like, okay, cool, thanks God, like I'm gonna go do that. And then we like walk out the door, we don't do it, and we're like, honestly God, like why have you not solved this? Like God, like tell me what to do. Oh my gosh, this is so good. Whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. Amazing. Amazing. I underlined that. Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. When we feel like a Christian or whatever, and yet we still go out and just spew hate and we just spew negativity and everything, we're really just like deceiving ourselves. Like, what is the point of our religion or our beliefs or what we know if we're just kind of deceiving the world and ourselves by like spewing the opposite of the message and not living how God wanted us to? Like, what is even the point? Because just reading it is wonderful, but doing it is a necessity. Like, you can't just read it and not do it. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. So I think this not only applies to literal orphans and widows, so I think this just applies to the world in general. People who are just down in the dumps, and honestly who isn't really down in the dumps, you know what I mean? We just have to look after each other. We need to reach a hand out to those who are less fortunate. We need to reach a hand out to just people who are suffering in general. Like, oh my goodness, like we need to take care of each other. Like, it is saying, take care of these orphans, take care of these widows, just take care of everyone in their distress, and just try and keep yourself from being jaded by the world. Like, I'm just gonna get real here. I struggle all the time with getting worldly messages about how I'm supposed to perform or what I'm supposed to do, because like our culture nowadays is all about like not having emotions or blocking and reporting and like turning your back on people or like popping off or like roasting people. Like, that is what it's all about. And honestly, I fall into that trap all the time. I fall into it literally all the time. If we put up like a beautiful, magical, shining, protected bubble around ourselves and just kept all of God's grace and all of God's messages and all of his truth and his word around us, and then we just had this big beautiful bubble like from the Wizard of Oz around us, and like the world was just like stabbing at it and stuff. Like, imagine if we just lived in that space. Like, imagine if when someone hurt us, instead of us turning and hurting them, we just gave them a hug and said, I love you and I hope this gets better and I hope you are healed and I'm praying for you. Just imagine, like, oh my goodness, like imagine if we didn't gossip. Imagine if we didn't cause war or kill each other or anything. I mean, like, that is what God considers pure and faultless. And unfortunately, humans will never be that way because our nature is to sin, and that is what we are. But that is what we should all strive to do, is to not let these messages of, you should like beat her back because like she slept with your man. Like, imagine if we just like heard that and then just like put up like a barrier before it reached our brain. If we just lived in God's word and God's message, which is so hard to do, by the way, we would just feel so pure in our hearts. And I just want that for myself. And I want that for you guys, because the thing is what people don't realize is you may feel like you're losing. I feel like this all the time, like, because there's people now who talk smack about me or post things about me or do this or do that. And it's like, so badly I want to post things, or so badly I want to like retaliate. And by not doing it, I'm actually not only helping other people, I'm helping myself most of all. And I'm honoring God when I don't do that. Like, if we chose God's way instead of our way or the world's way, it really would just make all the difference. Okay guys, so I'm sure this video is so long. I am so glad I did this. I feel so good after doing this, and I hope you guys do too. I am just so thankful and grateful that God gave me this message and gave me this Bible and the ability to speak so freely about something so glorious and wonderful, and to be able to put it out on the internet for all of you. I'm just so glad you watched this video, and please let me know what you think down below. Ask me questions, talk to me, give me your opinion. Literally, just tell me what you think. Let me know what you want to see next. And yeah, keep an eye out for the rest of James. There will be 4 more videos to complete James, because there's 5 chapters in James. But yeah, I am just so happy, so thankful, so grateful. And yeah, I love you guys so much, and God loves you so much. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on all my other social media. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!